All right, welcome everyone to today's Google Webmaster Central Office Hours Hangout. My name is John Mueller. I am a Webmaster Trends Analyst here at Google in Switzerland, and part of what we do is talk with webmasters and publishers like the ones here in the Hangout today. Maybe before we get started with any of the questions, is there anything on your minds, anything that we should tackle before we get started?
Yeah, hi John. Uh, if anybody, I'm not asking. I need one
Go for
question.
it. Sure, go for it.
John, in many travel websites, or you can say bus or flights websites, I see that sometimes Google has ability to rewrite the title tag. But in many flights websites, I have seen from source to destination city flights, those pages rank that are from destination to source, like from Boston to New York flights, page is ranking which is New York to Boston flights. So
Okay.
in such case, Google is taking any action because this is completely against any type of good user behavior. Like we need to go to that place, not from that place. We need to go come back.
That
So can you please
sounds
tell me what? Yeah, please.
That sounds more like something on our side where we're misunderstanding these pages somehow and ranking them for the wrong terms. So I wouldn't see that as something where we need to take action against the webmaster for ranking like that. It's more of an issue that we should be able to better understand those pages and the queries to connect them properly. So one thing you can do there, if you run across issues like that, is send me examples, which you could do by Twitter or Google Plus, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Another thing you can do in general is use the feedback link on the bottom of the search results pages. So that kind of goes to the search team as well, and they look at those feedback reports to kind of see what they should be doing differently.
Okay, I will just share that result
Sure,
either in forum or in your Google Plus page.
that sounds good. Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, let me get started with some of the questions that were submitted, and we'll probably have time for more questions from you all here when we get further down. Let me just mute you. Google deprecated its Ajax crawling scheme last October, saying Googlebot is able to understand pages like a modern browser. Is there any reason to still serve rendered content with regards to SEO, or is a 100% client-side React app now equivalent to Googlebot? So I wouldn't say that it's 100% equivalent to normal static HTML pages, but we can get a lot more content out of these JavaScript sites, JavaScript frameworks, than we did in the past. So I did a Google Plus post on this. Let's see, what was it, in March? It's called an update on the current state and recommendations for JavaScript sites. So I'd recommend going there to kind of double check what's possible, what's not possible at the moment. For example, you should avoid using fragment URLs if you're using that for navigation, and you should definitely double check to make sure that Search Console Fetch and Render is able to view your pages properly. And there's some other tips there, so I double check that as well. And in general, if you follow this advice and you have a page that's easily renderable by Googlebot with the testing tools, then that should be indexable and should be able to rank just as well as any other page on the web. So that's kind of where I'd point. I wouldn't say at the moment that it's really 100% equivalent. You can do whatever crazy JavaScript you want to make sites, but to a large part, we're definitely able to pick things up more like a normal browser would. When you clean up your link profile, is this enough to affect rankings, as you're technically altering the percentage breakdown between branded and non-branded links by disavowing the ones you don't want? So Not really focusing on the branded, non-branded part because I think that's a whole different topic. But essentially, if you're using the disavow tool or if you're removing links, then you're taking those links out of the equation. And if those links were supporting your website in any way, then obviously they won't be there to support your website anymore. So that's something where if you take links out on our side from being taken into account for your website, then we won't take them into account anymore. So they could theoretically affect your website as well. That said, if these are problematic links, if these are paid links, if these are other kinds of unnatural links, then that's something you do want to take out of the equation so that they don't negatively affect your website anyway.
Can I ask a question on that, please, John?
Sure.
It's directly relevant. What about sites such as skim links? So what they do is they convert the links across the site into affiliate links. So links and content are converted. The link gets redirected to an affiliate structure via some sort of plugin. The plugin itself is blocked by the robots file, but it doesn't really alter the links on the page itself. So do we have to explicitly no-follow those links, or do Google assume that it's a no-followed link because it's going to some sort of an affiliate structure and that's being blocked? I mean, how is that handled?
So where would they be blocked? So is basically, I assume it's a JavaScript file that's on the website that rewrites the content on the page, and that JavaScript file is blocked from crawling. Is that
what I know? Yes, so it is the JavaScript. This is my question. Someone else's. So essentially, you click on the link that redirects you to an affiliate link structure. That's via a JavaScript plugin. The plugin itself is blocked by a robots file, but the plugin itself doesn't actually alter the link itself in the embedded text. So you click on that, and I think then it appends it as it goes through.
Okay.
And it's sites like, I think it's Viglin and Skimlinks. That's the kind of thing. So it's like monetizing your content.
Yeah, I'd have to kind of take a look at some of these to see how we actually pick that up. But in general, if these are affiliate links, if there is any kind of an exchange taking place because of those links, then I'd recommend no following those. And if those links are placed with JavaScript, then sometimes it's just a matter of using the JavaScript to add the no follow there as well, so that when we render the page, we see the affiliate link, but we also see the no follow, and then all is fine.
Okay. What I'll do then, you Karen as you are, and I'll try to get an example so I can share that with you at some point later. Is that okay? Great. Okay.
That sounds great.
That example.
We found some old spammy over-optimized links going to one of our category pages, and we've now disavowed them. But if our rankings for that search term category go down, should we remove them from the disavow file? How much harm could this have been doing? So kind of similar to the previous question, if you're removing or disavowing links that supported your content, and these were otherwise good links, then those won't be supporting your content anymore. On the other hand, if these are, like you mentioned, old, spammy, over-optimized links, which sound like artificial links that you maybe placed yourself or that previous SEO placed or something like that, then that's something that you do want to kind of take out of the equation anyway and make sure that they're not causing any problems by being taken into account. We're considering sponsoring the local soccer team, which means they're going to have our company on their website with a link. How would Google treat this, and would this be a problem if the link was followed, even though it's sponsoring the local school, etc.? So in general, this is the type of link that you'd want to have no followed. So if the team contacts you with regards to this link, or if this link is something that you're in contact with them about, then I'd recommend letting them know about the no-follow so that they kind of understand what the thought behind that is. That said, if this is like a one-off, if you're not supporting your whole website by sponsoring hundreds of thousands of soccer teams, then that's not really something I'd lose any sleep over. Sometimes, especially these smaller local businesses, local soccer teams, schools, those kind of people don't really understand how no-follow works, and we're pretty good at kind of dealing with that on our side anyway. So that's not something I'd lose any sleep over, but I definitely let them know about it so that they could do it right if they want to learn more about how that actually works. Should we be marking up our blog posts on our site with the author tag? And if not, then how can you become an expert in your field if there's no way of Google knowing? We don't really use the rel author tag at the moment for search, so that's something where if you want to mark up your pages with the authorship tag, then that's fine. If you don't want to do that, that's also fine. I think there's one small aspect where we do use the authorship tag at the moment, but I wouldn't focus on that. And with regards to becoming an expert in your field, that's something that you become between you and your readers and everyone else out there on that topic. That's not something that you need to tell Google about specifically, because we'll generally pick up on that over time as well if we see that users see you as the expert of the field. And users are not going to look at any authorship tags on those pages, so that's not something that you need to artificially let us know about. I can see you've scheduled a mini site audit, which is very appreciated. However, I feel that most of us won't be picked and will miss out. So could this be a regular thing? We'll see how it goes. I'm happy to do more of these, but at the same time, you're also always welcome to post in the help forums. So that could be on our site in our Webmaster Help forums. It could be on any of the other Webmaster forums out there. And oftentimes you'll get very, very good advice because there's some really expert people out there who have seen a lot of websites and can really help you figure out what you should be focusing on more. And sometimes that advice is something that might be hard to kind of digest because you'll get a concentrated version of really expert feedback, and that might not be as sugar-coated as something that you might get elsewhere. Why would title tags for responsive websites vary greatly across smartphone devices and smartphone browsers? In some cases, make absolutely no sense. Title tags in question are well within the suggested pixel limits. So we do rewrite title tags and descriptions depending on how people are searching, for example. And that's something that essentially we're trying to refine what it is that we find on your site and make it clear to the user what your pages are about so that if they're really interested in this topic, they can actually go to your pages. And sometimes what we see is that title tags are just keyword stuffed, and those are things that users generally have a hard time understanding what is this page really about. So in cases like that, or in cases where the same title tag is used on lots of different pages across the website, we will definitely try to rewrite those titles to make them work well for the user and to work well on the device that they're on. We're caught in the crossfire of a dispute between a visitor and a site that advertises on our site. The site filed a complaint on ripoff report and included our site in the complaint. Should we be concerned about this from a ranking standpoint? From my point of view, that's not really something that you'd need to worry about. So whether or not there's a link on this third-party site is essentially not something that would generally be affecting your website there. What might happen in some of these cases is that this other site, the ripoff report site, also shows up in the search results for your site's name if your site is really prominent on that page, on that third-party site, for example. But with regards to just from a ranking point of view, that you suddenly have a link from a ripoff report site, that's not something I wouldn't worry about that. You republish a similar article on 2 pages on your page, including a reference sponsored article, and separately on the original one. Your canonical tag refers to the origin. Is this strategy an alternate for link building, or would you warn? So it sounds like you're posting, let's see, posting your content on other people's websites and trying to use that as a way to build PageRank, essentially, for your own content. And from our point of view, that's essentially kind of an artificial link. So that's something where we'd say these things should be kind of separate. So if you want to republish your content somewhere else, if you're using this as a kind of a way to advertise your site, then that's perfectly fine. It just shouldn't be passing any PageRank to your site. So that's like one situation where I'd put a no follow on those links to your site to make sure that this situation is really well defined. Our website uses an Add to Home Screen plugin for the mobile version, fully responsive, and the plugin causes a new URL, so domain.com/ and then the #ATH. This got indexed on mobile. There's a canonical, but it seems Google ignores that tag. What should we do? That seems like something that we should be handling better on our side. So I'd love to get an example of something like that so that we could pass it on to the indexing team to figure out what we should be doing differently. In general, if there's a canonical on a page like that, then we will try to take that into account and use that. So sometimes it's just a matter of us actually having taken the time to reprocess that, because a canonical on a page essentially needs to have that page be indexed first. And once we have that page indexed, then we can kind of pull out the canonical tag and process that and use that for further indexing. But until then, it might be that this page is actually indexed. What could also happen is that maybe we're indexing this page, but we're only showing it in the search results when you explicitly search for it. So if you search for the URL, for example, then maybe we'll show you this page. But if you search for your website normally, then maybe we'll just show you the normal homepage anyway. So we have systems that try to figure out if you're explicitly looking for something, and we know that we have an alternate URL that's kind of valid for that URL that you're searching for, then we'll try to show you that directly. But regardless, either way, I'd really love to see an example of this so that we can figure out what we could be doing better on our side, because especially the add to home screen functionality is something that I think is really, really nice and really kind of drives a lot of re-engagement with your website by making it possible for people to essentially bookmark your site on their home screen. Do you think that changing title can hurt the existing rankings if changing the title from Toyota Dubai new car prices to Toyota prices in Dubai? If you're just shuffling the words around in the title, then I don't think that would have any effect at all on the rankings. It might have an effect on what we actually show in the search results as titles for those pages. So depending on how you're shuffling things around, maybe it starts looking like something that's either really reasonable that we would show in the search results, or maybe it starts looking like just a collection of keywords that looks more like keyword stuffing, where we'd say, well, we probably want to rewrite this title on our side. But with regards to ranking, that should essentially be the same. Site A copied content from Site B. Site A agreed SEO traffic to Site B. So Site A uses a canonical to point to Site B, but didn't use a page level no index. Site A uses hreflang to syndicate copied content in Site A global sites. Do you think these signals confuse? That sounds really confusing to me. I'm not really sure what you're trying to do or how you have that set up. So one thing kind of to keep in mind is if it's confusing to try to explain to someone, then it's probably really, really hard to maintain properly. So it's not so much that this constellation works or doesn't work. Maybe it works. I don't quite understand what you're doing there. But the problem is when someone else comes along and tries to improve your website or work on this website, they probably will have a hard time understanding what it is you're really trying to do there. And the more complicated it is, the more likely it is that something will break along the way. And then suddenly this complicated construct falls apart because this one link somewhere kind of gets dropped. So as much as possible, I'd really recommend keeping things as simple as possible with regards to search, so that you clearly set things up in a very easy to understand way, and to really make sure that this is something that can be maintained without people reading a long document that explains what it is you're trying to do. The other thing to keep in mind is that maybe this works now, maybe this works for Google, but maybe another search engine will interpret this complicated construct in a slightly different way, and it'll break completely there. Or maybe Google will say, well, we'll change our algorithm slightly to slightly prefer this variation over that variation, and then suddenly it doesn't work in Google anymore either. So the easier you can make it, the clearer you can give any of the signals to Google and to the other search engines, the more likely they'll be able to do what you're trying to, or to help you with what you're trying to achieve. Let's say my page ranks first for a query, and I want to provide an external link to a page on another domain that ranks on the first page for the same query. Does it decrease the quality of my page? I don't see that as being problematic. If you're providing extra value by giving more links to more references on other sites, then that can be perfectly fine. That's not something I'd kind of discourage. Why does Google show results from international websites when searching in Dubai for like new cars and used cars? None of the local websites appear, even though they're good sites with local prices and data of new and used cars. That's hard to say why. I don't think we're trying to mess with you on purpose, so it's definitely nothing personal. But one thing that would probably be helpful there is to have some clear examples of what it is that you're seeing people search for. Ideally, something that's being searched for more than just by yourself. So if there's like this combination where in quotes you take this 4 or 5 word phrase and your site doesn't show up, then that's probably not something that the search engineers would really worry about, because it's a very unique query, and then maybe just a handful of people are doing that. But if you take something like, I don't know, a 2-word query or 3-word query, used cars in Dubai, for example, and we're showing really bad results for that, then that's something that the team will really want to take action on and try to figure out what it is in our algorithms that's not picking up the intent of this query properly. So if you have examples like that where you can really give me something kind of generic where you know that a lot of people are actually searching for this, then that would be something that would be really valuable to kind of bring to me, and we can bring it to the engineers to discuss in a little bit more detail.
So am I allowed to send you a message with the details?
Sure, definitely. Go for it.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Does Google plan to include voice search traffic data in Search Console reports in the future? I don't know what the exact plans are there, but we have discussed something like that to kind of make it easier to pull out what people have used to search on voice and what people are using by typing, similar to how we have desktop and mobile set up separately. I think some of that might be trickier because in practice, voice queries are more long form. They're more like sentences and real questions, and sometimes those exact queries don't get used that often, so we might be filtering them out in Search Console. But it's definitely something we've talked about. We've looked into different other types of queries or search results as well to see if there's something that we could be doing there differently. If you have any explicit examples of specifically how you think this type of feature or any other feature in Search Console could make it easier to really make high-quality websites, to really get some value out of Search Console in a way that makes sense for you to improve your service for your users, then we'd really love to see those kind of examples. So
John,
that, yes.
John, just out of interest, how close, so how accurate is the data in Search Console that we see compared to the data that Google actually uses to kind of rank and index sites? Is there like a secondary kind of conversion that happens, or is what we see in Search Console pretty close to what Google actually uses?
It's pretty close, I'd say. I mean, there's some things that we filter out, which I think we mentioned in the Help Center article for search analytics. Things like queries that were only used once, those type of things. We're working on improving some of that to include more of the types of links that are shown in the search results pages so that you have a more complete picture. But it's actually pretty close. So they come from the same sources at least.
Okay, thanks.
When we do a command site : website.com in Google search, is this result set delivered in the order of page rank importance for the results after the home page? I don't know what the actual order there is. If you do like an artificial query like a site : query. For some sites, we do show the home page on top, and for other sites, we show other pages on top. And that's generally not a sign that there's anything broken, but at the same time, I wouldn't use that order as a way of kind of determining how important your pages are and to try to figure out what you should be doing differently. But so I don't really have any specific answer on like what the actual order is in an artificial query like a site query. Will we see AMP reporting breakdown in Search Analytics soon? I don't know. Maybe it depends on your definition of soon, but we are looking into ways that we can include more information on things like, is something shown as an AMP page or not in Search Analytics? Because at the moment, that's kind of tricky where we fold things together with a canonical URL, and you kind of see the secondary effect of analytics being tracked for those AMP pages. But we'd like to make it a little bit more direct, that you can actually see how many of my pages were shown as AMP in the search results. We had someone look at our branch pages, and they told us that we needed to change our URL structure from site/branch/branch shop to site/branch shop, as this meant that the page rank would flow better. Is this correct? No. The URL folder structure on a website doesn't necessarily mean that they'll rank differently. So if you change things around within the URL folder structure, then that's essentially your identifier for those pages. It doesn't mean that it'll rank differently. What we do sometimes do is when we have two pages that are otherwise equivalent, and we have one with a short URL and one with a longer URL, we'll prefer the shorter URL. But this is for the situation where these pages are already equivalent, where they're essentially duplicates of each other. It's not the situation where we have one site with a long URL and another site with a short URL, and we'll rank the shorter URL higher. So it's really more the situation where these are already duplicates, these are on your site, or maybe on different copies of your site, then we'll try to pick the shorter one.
And John, just follow up to this. What about 3 links in our page? Can you just tell us if it really matters or it doesn't matter? If the page is very good, it will rank.
So how do you mean three links in a page?
3 links. Like people, SEO people always prefer the page should be at least accessible for only in 3 links, not in more than 3 links.
Oh, so like clicking from the home page to get.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no absolute count on that. But obviously, the further it is from the home page, the harder it is to reach that page. So what we do sometimes recommend is if you're making bigger changes on your website, then try to make those changes linked from like a higher level page, either your home page or category page, so that we can pick them up faster. Because usually what happens is we crawl the home page and the higher level category pages a little bit more often. And if there's something new that's linked there, then we find it a little bit faster. But it's not the case that you need to have a site structure that's limited to 3 levels where everything is reachable within 3 links, because for some websites that definitely makes sense. For other websites, that's almost impossible. If you have millions of pages, then you can't link everything within 3 links.
Right. Okay. Thanks for letting us know about it.
Sure.
John, I've shared my example. I was wondering if you could just have a look at it in the chat.
Okay.
I was saying about before. So if you navigate to that page and you scroll down, there's anchor text that says "Men's Jeans" at House of Fraser. As an example of anchor text, and the link itself, it is how it is, and it doesn't really change until you click on that. So how would Google handle that? How would Google see that? Would that be seen as a manipulative link, or would they be able to identify that it's part of an affiliate scheme? Or
which link is that?
so on that page, if you scroll down, it's like the last paragraph of that content.
Oh, the men's jeans.
Yeah. And if you click on that, that's the kind of link that I'm referring to, and we see more and more often. Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot more often because a lot of people are still trying to monetize their content, but we're just wondering how Google's handling that kind of thing. Because you physically have to click on it for it to change, and it goes through a series of 302 redirects.
Yeah. So from my point of view, if that link is there because of any monetary relationship, then that should be a no-follow. So even if the affiliate part is added afterwards with JavaScript, if you're placing the link there well knowing that it's going to be turned into an affiliate link, then that should be no-followed.
Okay. And because I can imagine a lot of these sites not realizing and maybe not understanding SEO as much, but just trying to make money from their own blog, would be inadvertently penalized as a result through that lack of knowledge and I don't know, follow, you see. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, the web spam team tries to be reasonable, and they understand a lot of these situations. So it's not the case that they would, like, dig for these type of sites that are doing this kind of thing unless we're really seeing that this is causing bigger problems in search.
Yeah.
So it's not that I would like run off and try to fix all my websites as quickly as possible, but rather try to understand the issue here, that this is a link that's being placed because of this kind of monetary relationship, and because of that it should be no follow, and then moving forward try to find a way that this can be done a little bit more efficiently. Maybe that the plugin places the no follow for you when the page is rendered, something maybe as simple as that. But it's usually not the case that if we see a handful of these on a website either going in or going out, that the web spam team would directly take action on that.
Okay. Oh, but PageRank would still flow through these links then?
Yeah, I mean, if we're not seeing this as a systematic kind of abuse vector, then it's certainly possible that PageRank will be flowing there. But if this is like, if you're on the receiving side of a link like that, then that's something where maybe it makes sense to talk to your affiliates and kind of let them know that they should be putting no follow on these type of links, so that it really doesn't cause any problems going forward.
So you think the problem would be the receiving end of that exact match anchor and multiple of these exact match anchor tags?
It kind of depends on what all is happening there. So if this website is only being supported by links like that, then that's certainly a problem. Similarly, if the website that's linking out is doing this kind of link exchange, link selling, essentially, on a systematic way, and that everything is like that, then that's certainly a problem. But if it's more balanced, then that's usually less of a direct issue and more of something that I'd say, well, you need to focus on this going forward, and it's not that you need to revamp your whole website to actually fix this problem from one day to the next.
Okay. Thanks. That's made that a lot clearer. Thanks.
We try to be reasonable, so it's not that we're trying to be picky and see, oh, there's this one bad link, and therefore we're going to remove your site from the search results.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. That's fair.
Is there an update on the status of having more info on featured snippets in Search Console? I don't have any update there at the moment. I know this is another one of those areas where the teams have been talking with each other to try to figure out what we could be doing to make this a little bit more interesting for webmasters, or a little bit more insightful information for these webmasters. But I don't know what the current status is there yet. Local newspaper TampaBay.com bought its competitor TBO.com. TBO is 302ing to TB while being remodeled, but only the home and category pages, not the old articles. The 302s go to the home page. Thoughts on this tactic and best practice for old articles if two are merged into one? So I guess for older articles, that's something where you could theoretically make a decision on whether or not to keep or to cut some of these. But in the long run, it probably makes sense to focus on one domain and to maybe put those articles on that domain there, redirecting from the old one to the new one. Obviously, in a case like this where you have two websites that are essentially merging, you will see some changes in search happening. It's not similar to moving from one domain to another, where we can just take all of the signals from here and reapply them there. If things are merging, then we essentially need to understand the new status of the website and to really understand how that site, in its new form, is kind of placed in the rest of the web. So that's something where it's going to see some fluctuations, and it might take quite a bit of time for everything to settle down there. The other thing mentioned in the question, that 302s go to the home page, that might be kind of problematic from our side, because what we would probably see that as is a soft 404, in the sense that pages from this website don't actually exist anymore. They're not going to a new version on the other site, but rather they're all routed to the home page, which is essentially kind of like a 404, in that you're saying, well, these pages don't exist anymore. I'm showing you this other page instead. So what would probably happen there is we would drop those old pages that are being redirected to the home page, because we'd see them as soft 404s. If you're merging these sites, then maybe that's not that critical. If you plan on separating them out again in the future, then that soft 404 will make it harder for us to recognize that the new content is actually still there or has moved again. So that's something where, depending on what the final goal is, you might say, well, this is fine. I'm going to live with this and just take the hit for having these pages drop out of search completely. Or you might say, well, I want to kind of keep those pages for the long run. Therefore, I'll find kind of an intermediate solution to keep those pages and to keep them indexed in search until we've been able to merge everything properly. So it's, from my point of view, it's probably not optimal to redirect everything to the homepage like that, but sometimes that's kind of the best way to handle this from a practical point of view, in that you can't solve everything at the same time.
John, can I just ask on that then? So if you've got product pages that die or disappear, what I tend to do is I'd want to redirect them into the category page, because one, it's a good user experience, so we're moving them up a level, but also to maintain any kind of page rank that page might have had. So am I right in saying that page rank will still flow, and because it's a 404, that page rank won't dissipate? We're still kind of repurposing that into the site by redirecting that into the category page. Is that a good solution for
yeah, I mean, if you're doing this on a bigger scale, we'll definitely recognize that as a soft 404, and we'll essentially treat it as a 404 on our side. So PageRank won't flow in a case like that. But if these are individual pages and the category page is really a good replacement for the individual page that was removed, then that's something where we might say, well, we'll just fold these pages together and forward any signals that we have to that category page. From a user experience point of view, I don't know if that's really a good user experience, though, because you want to look at this blue shoe that you found in search, and then you end up on this page that's actually about all kinds of shoes. So it's not really a match for what you were looking for. It's not a replacement in that regard. So that's something where I wouldn't blindly use this as a technique to kind of clean up products in a catalog. Sometimes it makes sense to fold things together, but sometimes you just want to show a 404 page and say, well, this product doesn't exist anymore, but maybe we have some other products that you can find here, here, here. Sometimes 404 pages can be really personalized, so that's something you might want to head in that direction instead.
Okay, and can I confirm then that you would if it had been done on a big scale, ignored it as a 301, and in Google's point of view, you'd see that as a soft 404 and ignoring the 301?
Yes.
Okay. I'll bear that in mind. Cheers.
Can you do me a favor and check my site and let me know if you find any issues? I can take a quick look, but it's really hard it's really hard to do kind of these live checks because there are just so many things that so many small details that are hard to kind of figure out by just taking a quick look. So I don't know, from a manual web spam point of view, I don't see anything problematic there. I mean, problematic in the sense that the web spam team has found anything to flag, but you'd see that in Search Console as well. I don't know. It's hard to say. At least it doesn't look completely problematic from what I'm seeing here. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to probably look in more detail to see what all is happening there because it looks like a pretty complicated site.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you submit this for the site clinic as well?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because then maybe I could take a look there. At least offhand, I don't see anything like glaringly obvious that I would flag. But it's like I said, it's really hard to like just throw 5 seconds at a site and then come out with something that would be new to you who has been working on this site for years, right?
So it's like always, hard for us to judge like if we are done with all the good stuff and like peer was something where we could like say, okay, we got like peer 5, so there are 5 more points to actually improve and increase stuff. But right now it's just all confusing. I don't know what to do else.
Yeah. So one thing I do see is that we're crawling a lot of pages that we're not indexing. So that might be a sign that your site structure is kind of inefficient in that we're finding links to a lot of pages that end up not being indexed actually. So for some patterns, we're seeing things like crawling 2 million pages and then indexing 10,000 pages, which is a really kind of a bad ratio, and that we're spending a lot of time looking at the site, but we're actually not finding something worth indexing
actually,
there.
I de-indexed all the search pages because it was recommended that not to index all the search pages where people search and all that stuff.
Yeah, but this is something that it's really hard to like just throw a bunch of URLs at you and say these are things that we wouldn't be indexing. But what I would do there is use sitemaps to let us know about the URLs on your website. That also lets you know how many of those URLs that you submitted are actually being indexed. And if you split your sitemap files up into logical chunks, then you can kind of see which parts of your site tend to get indexed and which parts don't. So that might be one thing to do. Another thing you could do is look at your server logs and compare the URLs that were being crawled by Googlebot to the URLs that you submitted with the sitemap file. So sometimes you'll see this discrepancy where we crawl a lot of URLs that aren't actually in your sitemap file, and that means that potentially we're wasting a lot of cycles doing things that we could be doing in a more concentrated way, where we could be focusing signals better on really the important pages on your website. So I kind of look into those URLs that aren't in the sitemap file and figure out where within your website those URLs are being linked, so that you can think about, does it make sense to kind of focus my canonicalization a little bit more and make sure that there are no links to these kind of other URLs that end up being crawled at the moment?
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Sure. We're seeing more and more .com.au and .com US-based sites and .de sites on google.co.uk for certain queries. Is this an issue with search? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. This is, I guess, one of those situations where having clear examples would be really useful. So if you're seeing something problematic like that, then use the feedback link definitely on the search results page. But you can also send me those examples directly, ideally in a way that I can reproduce them, so not just a screenshot of the search results pages, so that I can kind of see what's happening there and contact the right people on our side to make sure that we can kind of try to fix that. Because sometimes what might also be the case is that we're just not seeing a lot of local results that we could show, or we're seeing queries that are kind of ambiguous and that we don't realize that you're looking for something local, or maybe there's just really good content on other country sites that's worth showing as well. Any updates on solving the issue of having multiple properties for the same site in Search Console? For example, having to add www and non-www as well as the HTTPS variations as well. Any updates? We have been working on this to try to find a way to make it easier to track everything as a group, but I don't think we have anything to announce at the moment on that. For some of these things, if you're interested in what's happening in Search Console and you'd kind of like to stay ahead of a curve a little bit, you could also join us as a tester in the Search Console. On the Search Console side, I think the short link is g.co/Search Console Tester. That leads you to a forum where you can sign up to join some of the NDA test programs that we have. Is it not reasonable to assume site owners who have actually removed unnatural links to Penguin-affected sites will see some recovery over time, regardless of whether an update happens, since the removed links will be updated through the normal crawl process? This is a complicated question because you're connecting so many different aspects there. In general, if you've removed things like problematic links, if you've put them in a disavow file, then that does get taken into account automatically by all of our algorithms that use links. So that's one aspect that will definitely be playing a role there. For some sites, the issues around Penguin are stronger, and it's not the case that you'd see bigger changes especially when you're making tweaks on the links themselves. So you should, if you're making bigger changes on your website, see some of those changes reflected in search through the various algorithms that do use links, though. We have service reviews from a third-party site which relate to some of our branches. Will it help with SEO if we mark up this reviews against those branches, or is reviews only a ranking factor for Google Local for Business? As far as I know, we don't use reviews for normal web search rankings. So that's something where if they make sense for Google Local Review, Google My Business, I think, the Google Plus Local side, then that's something you can use there. But at least for the web search side, we wouldn't use that for rankings. Depending on how these reviews are set up, we could use those to show for rich snippets, though. So maybe that makes sense. Maybe this is a type of review that could be marked up with rich snippets, and in those cases that could make sense. On the other hand, if this is something that you're only doing for Google Local, then we probably don't use that for ranking at all on our side. If a CMS automatically 301 redirects the non-www version to www version, but the preferred version is set in current Search Console is the non-www version, will that cause issues? Probably not. So essentially what happens with the redirect and with the Search Console setting is that we know of two URLs that we see as being identical in most cases here. And we have various signals that say, well, this is the one that we should be showing, and some signals say this is the one that we should be showing. And our algorithms try to make a decision there in that they pick either this one or that one. And what will happen when they do make a decision is that whichever one that we pick gets the signals that we have collected. So it's not the case that you'll kind of lose out if you have a 301 redirect here and a rel canonical set here. It's more the case that we might pick a URL that you don't want to have indexed like that. So if you really, really strongly want everything indexed with non-www because all of your offline advertising is with non-www and you think it confuses people, then really make sure that all of those signals clearly say you want that version indexed. On the other hand, if we find confusing signals or kind of unclear signals that maybe internally you're linking to this one, but you have the canonical set to that one, then what will happen is our algorithms will pick either one of those and rank that just the same. So it's just a matter of like how much control do you want to have versus like how much control do you want to give to our algorithms. It's not the case that your site will rank any differently because both of these versions are your content, they're your site. We'll rank them in the same place. We'll just show this URL or that URL. The number of pages that are indexed in Google have dropped dramatically on our website over the past 5 months. How can I do a before and after analysis comparison of our website in Search Console? So the search analytics data is, of course, limited to, I believe, 3 months. So that's something where you can't look back more than 5, like the 5 months that you'd want to look back there, at least not in Search Console. What you could do potentially is look at things like analytics, where you see information on how people are coming to your site. You could also look at your server logs to kind of see where traffic from search is going to your site. And usually what you'll see there is the landing page and that they came from search. You don't know which keywords they came from, but at least you'll know this landing page was really popular 5 months ago, and now it's not popular at all. So maybe that page has a no index or somehow, for some other reason, just not selected as canonical or not indexed anymore. So those are kind of the two things I would point at there. If you're only limited to Search Console data, then of course you have those 3 months, and that's kind of the period that you'd need to focus on, where if this is a steady decline, then you'll probably see some information there too. If this was a drop that happened 5 months ago, then you probably won't be able to kind of debug that through Search Console alone.
Yeah, John, regarding mobile site, I just wanted to know one thing.
Okay.
I have all pages in a smartphone page website also. You can say for a smartphone, And what I know is for a smartphone, you told us that there is no need to submit any sitemap
Yes.
for a smartphone, and I am redirecting one-to-one page from desktop to mobile.
Hmm.
But the problem is coming that how to identify how many my pages for mobile are indexed.
I don't think you can do that.
Okay, so
So,
this
yeah,
this is yeah.
I mean, what essentially happens is we'll kind of rewrite those URLs in the search results where we do recognize that they're mobile. And for the other pages, you'll just have the
Hmm.
redirect. So it's not that the users would notice. It's really more a matter of like us internally knowing this connection there as well. So that's something where you wouldn't be able to really um, diagnose how many of your smartphone pages are connected to the desktop pages in a case like that. But you
Yeah, the
probably
problem.
wouldn't need to do that either because users go to the smartphone pages anyway because of that redirect.
Yeah, and the problem is coming that I whenever I need to submit a report in the company that how many pages are indexed, even I don't have any idea how many pages are indexed for a smartphone
Yeah, that's the case where you'd have to focus on the desktop pages because the
desktop.
desktop pages are meant to be the canonical pages anyway. So
Hmm.
in the ideal situation, we wouldn't index any of the smartphone pages separately. We just know the connection. So
Okay.
like the indexed URL count for sitemaps and the index status count, that's what I'd focus on there.
And earlier for a smartphone, I just submitted a sitemap, but it was like submitted to 20,000, but indexed only 50 or 60. So,
Yeah. In an ideal case, we wouldn't index any of them because they should have the canonical set to the desktop.
no.
So that's not really something where I think you'd see any helpful number there by submitting it like that.
Okay.
All right, one last question here, and then we'll have made it through all the questions again. If rich snippets are not showing in the search results, what needs to be done so that it's considered back again by Google? Technically, everything's set up correctly. Rich snippets are displayed on site domain. So usually in a situation like that where the testing tool says they're okay, from a policy point of view, they're okay and there's no manual action taken there, then that's a sign that we're just kind of looking at the quality of the website and kind of realizing that maybe we can't trust these rich snippets as much as we would like to. So that's the situation where I'd recommend really working hard to make the quality of your website overall just another step higher. And I realize that's easier said than done. There's no HTML line that you can tweak to increase the quality. So you might just need to take a step back, get some help from other people, get some advice from your users as well to see what you could be doing to really take everything up another notch. All right, we have 2 minutes left and no questions anymore. That's awesome. What else is on your mind?
John,
John, I have a question.
go on, you go.
Um, does Google perceive citing authoritative content from credible sites and linking to them something that would make your site trustworthy and therefore rank you high up in search?
I don't think so. So just citing content from other sites and linking to that content, I don't think that would make your site rank any higher. I know way in the beginning people tried to do this with Wikipedia and that they would quote Wikipedia, link to Wikipedia and say, this is a high quality site. Google, you should rank my site higher too. And that's definitely not the case. So sometimes citing other sources, linking to them adds value to your site. And in those cases, that certainly makes sense. But it's not the case that just because you're citing something and linking to it would automatically make your site more valuable.
Cool. John, I just, if it's okay to start a new question, I just
Sure.
wanted to jump back to what I kind of asked before about Google Search Console, which is that does the data within Google Search Console, is it quite a good representation of what's actually used by Search for Index? And I think that, and it's been talked about Hangouts in the past, that people often feel that the data in Search Console isn't as accurate as it could be. And I think there's also been a view, therefore, that perhaps Search Console uses, again, like a kind of secondary server or a subset of data or data once removed. And therefore, site owners haven't worried too much about the fact that their data in Search Console they might feel isn't accurate. But just for, for clarification, I know you answered this question earlier, but the data in Search Console is the actual same data that's used by search. So if people are looking at their data in there and they're kind of going, hang on a minute, something's not right here, they probably should be trying to sort something out.
It comes from the same source. Let's
Right.
put it that way, because we kind of have to refine the data shown in Search Console to make it easier to understand and to kind of collect like an aggregated view. So the one aspect that we sometimes see is that you're looking at Search Console and saying, well, you have an hreflang error that was on your site 2 months ago, and you're like, well, is this still relevant or not? And in a lot of cases, that's just from the way that the data is aggregated, in that we say, well, we've looked at the data since, I don't know, the last 90 days, and you had this error there then, and we haven't recrawled it since then. So it's theoretically, it might have changed on your website, but the last time we looked at it, it was like this. So that's, I think, one of the reasons people sometimes assume the data isn't really as high quality as it could be. The other thing is, especially with regards to search analytics, we do filter out some things there, where when we see that queries are really only taken a handful of times, and that's something that we might filter out for privacy reasons. And you will see kind of the difference there that we filter out when you look at the overall numbers per query and look at the individual numbers that we show on the bottom for the queries that we do show. So sometimes you'll see something like 100 impressions on top above the table, and if you add up the numbers in the table, you'll see, well, it's actually just 80 impressions that are shown here. Like, can't Google add numbers up? What's the problem here? And that really comes from those queries being filtered out. So that difference, those 20 impressions, are probably just queries that we say, well, we've only seen these once or twice or a handful of times, therefore we think it's probably not the most relevant information for you, and maybe there's some private data in those queries that we wouldn't want to share with people.
Okay, I mean, I think that inbound links is one of them, where people kind of say things like, well, hang on a minute, that link hasn't been there for 12 months and I'm still seeing it, plus the 10,000 links that are actually there I'm not seeing in console. And we've had some similar issues with things like mobile usability, where our site's always been mobile usable 100%. The mobile usability feature appeared, it permanently got stuck at 50 pages that it said were not mobile usable. You follow the link, you follow them through, you did the analysis, the Google tool that checks it, and it said they were fine. And then they, after a few months they kind of disappeared and went to naught. But it's just whether anything like this should be of a worry to people, or there's anything that they need to do to kind of help that.
Hard to say. So it really depends on the individual features, in that they of course, they're built up at separate times. They use different data sources, and what might be kind of something stale or kind of not that high quality with regards to links doesn't necessarily apply to other things. So I don't know specifically around links how well maintained all of that is and how fresh that should be. So that's something where I don't really know that much about. With regards to mobile usability, the issue that we sometimes show older data there is really just because we haven't recrawled or reprocessed that individual URL since then. So we say, well, the current state is based on a crawl that we did maybe 3 or 4 months ago, but that's the current state. That's what we use internally as well for our index. And sometimes it's completely normal that we wouldn't recrawl a URL for maybe half a year, maybe even longer. And that time until that URL is naturally recrawled, it'll remain there in the mobile usability report.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so let me just see. One question here in the Q&A. Then we'll have everything covered. If I will load, for example, meta character set, meta description equals nothing, meta keywords equals nothing, empty part with JavaScript or JSON, is that very bad for SEO? So Some of these we don't take into account at all. The character set we try to figure out on our side if you don't have it specified. Description is not used for ranking. It's just a snippet. Keywords is also not used for anything on the web search side. So if you leave those three out, then I don't think that will change anything with regards to your site in search, other than that we'd have to figure out how to show a snippet on our side. If you fill that content out with JavaScript, then we'll try to pick that up when we render those pages. The character set is probably trickier if you're changing that with JavaScript, but especially this description, which we could use for the snippet, is something that we could pull out. Keywords, again, we don't use at all, regardless of if you fill that with JavaScript or if it's on the page itself. All right. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining. Thanks for all the questions, and hopefully see you all again in one of the future Hangouts.
Thanks again, John.
Cheers, John.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye.